Yemen Jews knew about Moroccan Jews that knew about Iranian Jews that knew about Jews in Europe. Although we were separated, there was this feeling on understanding of a Jewish tribe. Like out there's like this Jewish tribe before the establishment of the Israeli state. We still have like the Jewish spirit inside us, and we know we are a part of a people. But when we asked Ethiopian Jews, they had a different situation. Ethiopian Jews, if you know, separated from the Jewish tribe real early on, from the first temple. For the collapsing of the first temple, one of the group have wandered down to Egypt. From Egypt, they continue to Kush, what we know today to be modern Ethiopia. And they were living their life as an isolated minority, very closed off, and thinking their entire life they are the last descendants of Judaism in the world. This is a very important fact to remember because it will tell you a lot about why we acted the way we act through the history, and even how our feelings here in Israel. We always believed that we were the last tribe of Judaism. So for us, Judaism was the most important part of our identity. When you look in different Jewish communities around the world, you will see there is like attempt of assimilation, integration in the country or the society. But for Ethiopian Jews, there wasn't any effort. They tried to isolate themselves from the general public. They tried to prevent themselves to meet the general public. They stayed in their villages. They built their own Jewish villages. They married only inside the villages. And even if you weren't Jewish, you weren't allowed to get into their villages. Why? Because they were afraid from assimilation. That was the biggest fear. They were afraid from assimilation. For them, they are the last descendants of Judaism. And for that, their responsibility is to keep Jewish identity alive. It's on them. So their entire life was focused about that. Living in Ethiopia wasn't simple. Why is that? If you know, Ethiopia was one of the first countries to accept Christianity as its main religion. I think it's the Vatican, and after that, Ethiopia has accepted Christianity as its main religion, meaning the Caesar at that time, we're talking about the 4th century, was going through Ethiopia and said, from now, Christianity, it's our religion. Ethiopia, it's a large country full of different tribes. You have over 75 different tribes and different beliefs in Ethiopia. And he said, it doesn't matter, from now on, we are all Christian. It went one tribe after another and start converting people to Christianity. And when they got to the Ethiopian Jews, they said, listen, from now on, we're Christian. It's your responsibility to convert to Christianity. And the Beta Israel is the house of Israel. This is how they were called in Ethiopia. Looked at the Caesar and says, no, we are the last descendants of Judaism. If we convert to Christianity, Judaism will disappear from the world. We cannot afford ourselves to do it. And with back and forth, and with no avail, the Jewish people wouldn't convert to Christianity. So the Caesars did something very simple. They said, if you continue your bad ways being Jewish, forever you're going to be a falasha in this land. What falasha means in Amharic? Falasha is the strangers, the other one, the people that by law are not allowed to own a land. Jews in Ethiopia were looked as the others. My father, my mother, my grandma were told, go back to your country. You don't belong. You are the others. And they weren't allowed to own a land. If you were Jewish, you couldn't have property. Why is that so important? What is the issue of land and property is so important in Ethiopia? Because in that time in Ethiopia, the base of economy was agriculture. Agriculture economy. You have your land, you you work on your land, you have your product, and then you go and sell it in the market. This is how you make money. If you tell one group they cannot own a land, well, you actually telling them they cannot provide for themselves and their family. You're giving them a economic death sentence, because from now on, they cannot be a part of the major source of economy in your country. And Caesar Isaac was sure that by doing that, he got rid of the Jews and everyone is going to convert. Because what choice do they have? But he didn't realize that the spirit of the Jewish people is much more stronger than that. And no command or providence will make us convert our religion. So Jews were started looking for work in other ways. They start working in construction. They start working in fine art, selling and making art, or things you can use at home. And then you go to the market and sell it. My grandma used to make, it's a pot that you make in order to put some stuff in. Making it will take her 3 weeks. And then she would walk to the near big city for 6 hours. She will sell her products and then she'd go back on foot 6 hours. And I would ask her, Grandma, how could you do it? Like, wasn't that hard? Wouldn't you want to give up? And she said, for us, there wasn't anything about giving up. The option of converting it wasn't even in the cards. It wasn't an option. You rather die as a Jew than converting. This is the spirit, because they thought they were the last ones, so they saw their duty to save the Jewish religion as the most important part. So they continue living their whole life. The situation in Ethiopia have worsened toward the year. The outside world, their neighbors have treated them badly. You have acts of violence, acts of burning down the synagogue. It was actually very, very hard to be Jewish in Ethiopia. As the years went by, the community have understood they have to find a way out, that Ethiopia is not a safe place for them anymore. And suddenly you start hearing some rumors that maybe they are not the last tribe of Judaism. Maybe there's a Jewish world out there. There are more Jewish communities out there. And then they hear even a much weirder rumor. Not only they're not alone, there is a Jewish country. A place where Jews can be safe. When I say a rumor, you have to understand. We are talking about Ethiopia in the 70s. When I say rumor, I literally mean rumor, okay? From word to mouth. I heard it from the neighbor, that heard it from the sister, that heard it, like, I don't know. They didn't have WhatsApp or Facebook or I don't know, any other cool app that I don't know right now. They didn't have that. They only had the word of the neighbor or based on this rumor. And the rumor was very simple. There is a Jewish state out there. And if you walk from Ethiopia to Sudan, which is a neighbor Muslim country, neighbor Muslim country, if you walk there, a walk there is over a month, this imaginary Jewish country will save you. This was the rumor. Okay, so let's think about it honestly. How many people here will leave their house, put their family in danger, start walking for a month in the middle of the desert based on a rumor? How many of you will leave everything they know based on a rumor that they heard from someone else? I assume for most of you, the answer will be no. Most of you wouldn't do this road. Most of you wouldn't put your family in danger. Most of you wouldn't leave everything you own behind just for this dream. For my community, the number was over 20,000 people. Over 20,000 people have walked toward the desert for over a month based on a rumor. The journey was very, very hard. You had people dying from starvation, lack of water, burglars, diseases, and the road that not everyone went in one way. They went one group after another. So the rumors about how tough the road is and how dangerous it is already came back to Ethiopia. And you sit and ask those people who did this road, why would you do it? Why would you risk everything you own, everything you have, your family, for something you are not sure about? And everyone had the same answer. If you would die, you would die in the way to Jerusalem. If you will pass away from this world, it was for Jerusalem. And this worth everything. Just being in Jerusalem is worth the risk of dying. This is the sentiment of the belief. In their entire life was shrink to this moment, being able to go back to Jerusalem. It wasn't about Israel, the country. We're talking of a very Zionistic religious belief. They didn't know anything. They know only the things that they read in the Torah. And this happened. We're talking about Operation Moses, one of the first big operations where you brought Ethiopian Jews to Israel. My family was very lucky. You see, we came in a different operation. We're talking about Operation Moses, and in the 80s, that happened for a couple of years. We came Operation Solomon in the 90s. So they didn't have to walk for a month in the desert to a neighbor country. They only had to walk for a couple of days from Gondar, which is the village. Now it's, I think, like the second biggest city in Ethiopia. But back then, we're talking about 20, 30 years ago, it was small villages in that area, mainly Jewish villages. Now you don't have barely a Jewish community there. They had to walk from Gondar to Addis Ababa, which is the capital city of Ethiopia, just for several nights. It was my mom, it was my dad, and my big brother. And my mom was 9 months pregnant. Imagine to yourself, all the women in this audience probably can appreciate that. Being 9 months pregnant, walking in the desert for a place you're not sure you're going, you don't know who's waiting for you, or you doing this journey because you believe. My family started walking for several nights. At the second night, my mom's water broke, and in the middle of nowhere, she had to deliver a baby. And she had a healthy little girl, and she decided to call her Ashager. Why Ashager? Because she believed I was a sign from God. Again, my family is a very religious family. They said, God had brought her right now to show us their way. Going from something bad that happened to us, which is live in Ethiopia, to something good, which is living in Israel, going to Jerusalem. Ashager going forward to something good. Until this day, if you ask my dad, he would say, she's my lucky charm. She's the reason that I'm here. What you have to understand is that my dad and my mom have a very different stories. For my mom, when she told me the story of how she brought me to the world, she told me how she was in the middle of the desert by herself, like labor, and it's so hard. And when you ask my dad, he says like, no, it was okay. I put some stuff there. It wasn't by herself. I took care of her. It wasn't that big deal. My mom, they have very different stories of what's going on in this desert, but you have to know both stories. And for our family, one of the most meaningful moments is coming to Israel. When you ask my grandma, sorry, what is the first thing that she did when she walked down the airplane? She would say the first thing she did is bend her knees and kiss the ground. Because for her, she wasn't just accomplishing her dream. You have to understand, it's not a dream of one person, of one family, or one community. It's a dream of hundreds of ancestors before them. They dreamed at that moment. Their entire life was about going back to Jerusalem. Three times a day, they were praying to go back to Jerusalem. And she was the first generation in her family that was able to fulfill this prophecy. So for her, it was something very, very important and very strong. But coming to Israel wasn't simple, wasn't easy. One of the first questions people ask me when they talk about with me, it will be about the integration of the Ethiopian community in Israel and how they feel. And people like to talk in big terms, like it's bad, it's good, it's great. Everyone has their own opinion. And for me, my answer is like most of things, by the way, in Israel is complicated. If you know anything about Israel, you know that the answer is complicated, pretty much fits everything that's going on here. And why is that complicated? Because every generation has a different experience of Israel. Because when you talk to my grandma, her entire life, like you ask her, like, what are your feelings in Israel? How do you feel? What is the integration? She will say everything is perfect. Everything is great. I'm happy. And you, as a critical thinker, you will say, like, nothing is perfect in life. How can you say everything is perfect? For her, it's very simple, because in her entire life, she had one dream. She had one purpose. She was one thing that she was inspired to do, and is going to Jerusalem. And she was able to fulfill it in her lifetime, something no one else before her were able to do. So everything else, it's not relevant. She's not even thinking about it because she did her part. When you talk to the second generation, who people like me, who were born in Ethiopia but raised in Israel, we have a situation of almost dual citizenship. Why I say that? Because I grew up in a very Ethiopian household. I ate Ethiopian food, I speak Amharic, listen to Ethiopian music. Everything surrounding me growing up was Ethiopian. But once I went out of my household, it was all about Israel. I was all Israeli, with the attitude and lack of manners, if you know, everything that being Israeli being expected to be. So I always feel like in one part, I'm very grateful to the life that I'm living right now, because I know it was given to me. It's not something I need to be grateful. I understand the sacrifice so many people have done for me to live my life as a Jew and free and safe. But at the same time, I feel all Israeli and have demands, and they have like they want to be a part of the Israel society. So it's always like this dual relationship. But when we talk to the third generation, which is my siblings, they have a different experience. They know nothing about Ethiopia. They barely speak the language. They barely eat the food. Not talking about music. They feel 100% Israelis. As an Israelis, they demand equality, and anything that is less than equality, they will go out and protest. They will speak their mind. A lot of people will assume protesting, stuff like that, is a sign for bad society. But I disagree. Because only people they feel their voices matter go out and protest. Only people who feel they can make a change in their society will go out and be an activist. So when I see those things, I'm happy, because I know it works for us to be a better society, a better Israeli society. And one of the things that I felt that is missing I grew up, as I said, in a very Ethiopian household. I'm very proud of my Ethiopian identity and history and heritage. But when I go out and I ask people and I talk to people, I realize most people don't know anything about my community, anything about my culture and what I come from. And I think this is a problem. And from that place of asking, how can we connect people? How you can break down barriers, how we can break down stereotypes people have, we decided to open an Ethiopian Israeli Heritage Center. Bete. Bete, it's my house in Amharic. And the purpose of the center that we built is to tell the story of Ethiopian Jews in an interactive and fun and combined way. We want to create an atmosphere where people can come, experience the amazing culture we have in Israel, Ethiopian Jews, our history in a fun way. I just share my screen. Let me know that you see them. Can you see? Yeah. Okay, this is in the middle, it's my aunt. My aunt is my role model. She is this amazing woman that she came to Israel when she was only 11 years old. And she's a lawyer, she's a business owner, and she set up an example of what Israeli kindness is. And together we sat down and we asked ourselves, how can we in our literal world can make a difference? How can we create a space where people can come and talk and dialogue? And we said there's different ways to protest. There are protests you go to the street. There's protests where you go to like a position, high position of power in government or business. And there's protesting by education. And we decided to protest by education. We decided to teach people about our culture and history, and by that, connecting people. This is the outside of our center, and we have my aunt and two of my aunt and me. As I said, it's a family business that we created. This is our first group at the center. In the beginning, we just opened the business. You always are super nervous about what is going on and would it be successful. And the moment we opened the business, the schedule were filling up with people and groups coming and want to experience the Ethiopian culture. And we understood there's a lack of, right now there's a lack of a place where you can actually learn and experience. And this is our first group. What we do in the center, as I said, is an interactive. We teach people about the culture through food, music, art, and dancing. So every group that comes in our center get to listen to me blah, blah, talk for a few minutes, and then they get to eat Ethiopian food, get to dance to Ethiopian music, and everything inside the center is made by Ethiopian artists. So we talk about different artists that been in Ethiopia. We traveled to Ethiopia before opening and brought a lot of Ethiopian artifacts to make it feel as authentic experience as possible. The groups that we bring are very diverse from different places around the world. We had people from the United from Australia. We have the United States. We have Canada. We had Mexico. We had people from London. We have different groups from different origin, and not only Jewish. People who want to learn about Israel in a different way that it's been presented in the media came and saw our experience. Stop sharing the screen 1 second. And that's what we believe in. We believe in the end of the day that no one is born racist. No one is born bigot. I truly believe it in my heart. What people are missing, they have a lack of knowledge. They don't know and they assume stuff. As a community that is very small, we are 165,000 from the entire Israeli society. That means that we approximately only 2% of the entire society. And what creates that a lot of Israelis don't get to know someone from Ethiopian descent. Most of the community lives in the same areas, and you and as an Israeli can grow up your entire life and not actually get to talk or have a friend who is from Ethiopian descent. And you may have one encounter in the army. Army is like the melting pot of the Jewish of Israel, so everyone get to meet each other. But after that, you don't have this experience, and most of their information comes from TV, and we know that TV likes to put staff who are just like for headline and not a representative of the image of the community. And that's what we open better, a place where Ethiopians can tell their story, people can come, eat Ethiopian food, listen to the music, learn about our history, and just connect. I had people coming to me that have been in Israel for 25 years of their life come and say, listen, I never heard the stories. I'm ashamed to say I understand what Israel means to you, why I understand what is your connection to this country. I have Jews from the United States who view their Jewish identity as very strong and important, and said I was never educated about the story of Ethiopian Jews and how diverse our tribe is. And this is why this job is so important. It's important in order to create a change inside our community. So thank you very much, guys, for listening. I will take, if you have any questions, feel free to ask. This is your time.
Ashager, thank you so much. I've got like a million questions to ask you, but I won't hog the the show. So we've had a question from Yeva. Have you experienced racism in Israel, and what is the government doing about this?
Okay, so I feel like every minority, especially minorities who are visible, like I cannot hide the fact that I'm Ethiopian. Like I don't want to, but I'm saying like it's Jews are also a minority, but Judaism is something we can hide. We shouldn't. We in any format we should not hide our Jewish identity, but it's something that we can do. But being Ethiopian, being Black is not something that I can hide from or shy away from. This is the first thing that people see when they looked at me. And I did had experience of racism in my life, but I have an amazing parents that taught me from a very, very, very young age about what is racism and what it actually means. And my parents tell me once you give a person a reaction, you give him a power. Meaning, if someone said something racist to me, and then I go about my day and thinking about, oh, how could you say that and be in that position? I gave him a power. I gave him a power of my feelings, of control of how my day is going. Then, in fact, racist people who are, in my opinion, are very sad. They are so miserable in their own life. They are looking someone to blame, someone to look as down as them. They are I truly think like that. And when I encounter those kind of spaces, I every time, and my friends get more mad about me experiencing racism than I am, because I would be like, I feel so sorry for you that this is your only outlet. This is the only way that you feel good. I feel like bad for you that this is your life. And I'm continuing about my day. I would never remember him. I would never remember the experience because it's such a nothing in my existence. And I never, never, never let racists have the power. And what governments do about it, there is like, you can sue, there is like a lot of like process. If you've been discriminated against, you have laws that protect you. And the problem is about racism, it's about the way people think, and you cannot govern the way people think. What you can do is educate them better in order to accept different minorities and different people, and that's what we're trying to do at Bete. We had a group of 6 years old coming and learning about Ethiopian culture and learning about what is the meaning, just for them to experience it in a positive way at the first time.
Thank you, Shaga. We've had quite a few people saying thank you, and one person commented that they really like your attitude towards racist, really sound.
Thank you.
I wanted to ask you, when you were living in Ethiopia, was everybody Shomer Mitzvot, or were some people more secular, or did you all grow up very, very similar?
Okay, so in Ethiopia, you didn't have a choice. You are Shomer Mitzvot, or you are not a part of the community. That's it. Because they were so terrified of assimilation, of someone coming and taking their youth on, let teach them bad ways. Anyone that decided that doesn't want to be Shomer Mitzvot, he will be kicked out of his house. Even more than that, if you go to the city, if you decide to go to the city to learn, you will never like be permitted to come back to the village, because they don't know if you've been compromised there and then you come back because there was you have to understand there was a lot of work from the missionary work toward the Ethiopian community, and they were trying to bring like to infiltrate like the missionaries to our community in order to convert them. So the community had to keep very alert. And we were very, very religious. I think like one of the most religious the things that they were preserving, even like women, if they have their cycles, they couldn't stay in the village. There was like a small cabbage that was open outside of the village for women. And the women of the village will take care of your own children while you are, it's like very biblical. Everything is very biblical. If you go to the city in order to do groceries or anything else, you were encountered with people who are not Tameh, who are not Jewish. So you have to go to the river, clean yourself, cleanse yourself, and just after that, you are able to go back to the village. The way one of the nicknames they called Ethiopian Jews was Atinkui. Atinkui in Amharic is don't touch me. Why they call them Atinkui? Because the first reaction of Ethiopian Jews when someone who is not a part of the community tried to touch him was like, don't touch me. Because they were so, it was so important for them to stay pure. They were really, really like serious in the way they preserved the Jewish identity.
Okay, and following on from that, obviously you've said that the generations, their experiences are very different. So obviously it's been probably the same in terms of their religiosity, how it's disseminated through the generations. Do you now have an Ethiopian culture that's not religious, or is it still very traditional and they still keep mitzvot?
So that is a very interesting question. Thank you. So in general speaking, mamash in general, big part, the Ethiopian Jewish community is religious. If not religious, traditional at best. You will very, very rare to see people who don't preserve any mitzvah. Like I come from a very religious family and I'm not religious anymore, but I still eat kosher. I still like want to work on Saturday. I still like have like every holiday. I still like preserve Kippur or Passover. I won't eat bread, although I'm not religious, because the nature that I grew up on was instilled, like it's so strong and instilled for me, is a part of who I am. I cannot eat non-kosher. For me, it's like not, it's just like not something that I grew as. So even if you consider yourself a non-religion, you wouldn't be like, you wouldn't be out of the box. You will still have like traditional in Ethiopian culture. Even if you're not religious, you will be still traditional. You keep the holiday, you keep kosher, you keep poor, Passover, all of this stuff, or as like milestone in our education. And more than that, I can say like the way I want to raise my children, although I'm not religious, I want to raise my children the same way my parents raised me, because I understand those values are very important to preserve our Jewish identity.
Lovely, right, we've got lots of questions. So is there a difference between how you feel about Israel as a state and a home than how your parents felt about Israel?
You have a very good question, you guys.
That's from a rabbi.
Okay, so it's very different in the end of the day. I think my parents have a very, like, if you ask my grandma and my dad and my mom to describe Israel before they came here, they could only describe Jerusalem. And for them, Jerusalem was a city built of gold and rivers of honey. That's like legit what they thought, because this is what they've been reading in the Torah every single day of their life. That's what they were thinking they are coming to. Like the first time that my grandma saw a woman walking around with pants. Oh, no, it was a short, like a short skirt. The first time she saw a woman walk around with a short skirt, she started crying because how a woman will this like wear like this in the land of God. Like this is how like biblical the idea of Jerusalem was. It was very like imaginary in some way. That is their view in Israel. And right now, the life they experience, they don't like I don't see them as like truly Israelis. They get by. They know enough Hebrew to get by. They work very hard, and everything's like, in my experience, everything in their life is in order to provide for their children and making sure that we have a better life. This is their experience. Rather than for me, I feel all Israelis is like I'm Israeli. I don't care about what is your opinion or what do you think about me. If you like me here, great. If you don't like me, you are more than welcome to go. I'm staying put. I'm Israeli. This is my sentiment. I'm a part of the Israel society. My culture is a part of the Israel society. So we have a different experience, very, very different experience. But thanks to their experience, I'm so appreciative to where I am right now. I don't take anything for granted. I understand that I'm the first generation in my family that's able to live their life as Jewish and free without being afraid of anti-Semitism. It didn't happen to my parents. So this is something that I'm very, very grateful for.
Thank you. What are the differences between the observances of Jewish law practiced now in Israel between Jews of Ethiopian origin and Ashkenazi or Sephardi traditions?
Okay, so again, very good question. I'm not just saying it, this is actually a good question. It's like very insightful. So there is a lot of not a lot, there is a difference because the Ethiopian Jewish tribe have separated from the big Jewish tribe early on. We only had the Torah. We don't have like the big Jewish revolution after that we're talking about. Ashoftim, and like all the interpretation of different books, or all the different halacha interpretation. We didn't have that. We practice Judaism according to the letter it's written in the Torah, meaning holidays like Purim or Shavuot were not really celebrated. It just came after that. We didn't celebrate. If it wasn't written in the Torah, we didn't celebrate it. So it's different in some ways. And right now, what you see is the new generation don't even know the difference between Ethiopian halacha, Ethiopian traditions that came from Ethiopia to what is like Ashkenazi or Mizrahi. That everyone is being taught here and like a Jewish in Jewish schools, and they learn the same thing. So only the older people are practicing in the same way they practice in Ethiopia. And young people are usually kept like very like traditional Israeli Judaism. You know, in Israel we only have like one stream of Judaism. It's like a monopole of the Orthodox Judaism. You don't have like different options here, so most of them will tend to that. Something very interesting, you have people who came here when they were like 15, 20, which is relatively old. So they remember Ethiopia and they don't believe in the traditional Rabbanut establishment, because they say very like, they have this argument saying, my parents have been practicing their Judaism the way they practice their Judaism for hundreds of years. The Rabbanut is an institution that exists for 70 plus years. How come as institution that exists for 70 plus years is going to tell me how to practice my Judaism when I know well enough how my parents have practiced and preserved the Jewish identity. So there is like a battle there, but it's not as strong because the new generation, they're not that interested in the difference. They go in the mainstream Israeli society of practicing Judaism.
Are there any Jews left in Ethiopia?
Yeah, I think today we have approximately 6,000 Ethiopian Jews. There is a plan to bring them all in the coming 5 years. I hope it's actually is going to happen. What happened with this situation, it's very, very sad. The issue of immigration of Ethiopian Jews became a political matter, and every party wants to take ownership on that in order to allure more voters from the sector of Ethiopian Jews. And once anything become political, it becomes dirty and it doesn't help the people. So you have people who are waiting forever, 2-day kids, or parents who are living in Ethiopia and their children are being raised in Israel. A lot of sad and terrible stories. The reasoning for that is we're talking about the Falashwa Jews. What is the Falashwa Jews? Jews who are disconnected from the Beta Israel. I said Beta Israel is the way the Ethiopian Jews were called in Ethiopia. And so they disconnected. And the community have, like I told you, once you're not a part of our community, you're not a part of us. You cannot be with us. And those Jews were saying, listen, the only reason that we went out is because it was so complicated, but we still kept our Jewish identity. We keep preserving our mitzvot, but we had to pretend to be Christian outside because otherwise it was dangerous for us. So it's very complicated. So what is going on there? Those Jews are going to be converted to Judaism again, and they're going to come to Israel. And I hope soon rather than later.
This is from your friend Nicole. Yeah. Hi, Ashager. Can you talk about your experiences talking about Zionism around the world and the anti-Semitism you've encountered?
So yeah, I think one of the things that are so hard is because I have a so complex identity in the end of the day. I'm Jewish, I'm Black, I'm woman. There's so many things going on, and in a lot of circles, I'm not accepted because as someone who is the way I look are supposed to have a certain opinions about Israel and the state of Israel, and suddenly this girl come up and say like, I'm a proud Zionist. More than that, I see Zionism as a protector, something that saved my family, because people can talk about it, the different issues, but in the end of the day, my parents were living in Ethiopia. They were born in Ethiopia. They looked like every other Ethiopian. We were all the same color, but they still were Jewish. They were still looked as Jewish. They were still looked as other, although they looked like everyone else. And the reason they are still alive, they are still here today, is because of Zionism, because of the state of Israel, because of the protection we have here. And for me, telling the story, it rubs a lot of people in the wrong way, and they start. First of all, either the first thing they would do is say, you're not really Jewish, which is one of the most insulting things that you can say to someone, or they doubt my sincerity or the point of view. People, especially online, if you are out there, people are very, very aggressive, and they don't think about the word and the way they experience that. And for me, it's very hard. I won't lie. It's very hard to be outspoken because the constant criticism, the constant anti-Semitism and racism and a lot of bad things that come to my way, but I keep doing it because it's important. And one of the things that my dad told me when we talk about those issues, he said like, Ashager, if you say something and everyone agree with you, you haven't said anything or anything that's worthwhile. If you speak up and you have people oppose you, that means that you are changing something. Your words matter. You create a discussion, and that's what I want to do. I want to create a discussion. I want to create an atmosphere where there is not one way to view Zionism. There's not one way to view Israel, and that is my purpose. To create a more diverse story of Jews in general, because we are a diverse community, and the more diverse story of Israel and complicated is the story of Israel. This is my purpose, because I truly believe that would help us in the long run to be a better, and more fair, more equal society.
Wonderful. Have they been building relationships between the Ethiopian community and Arab communities in Israel?
I don't think there's like a specific initiative to both communities. Arab Israelis are 20% of Israeli society, so they are there. And if you have an access and you have friends, I have like a lot of friends there, and it's just like, for me, it's very natural. I don't look at it as like building relationship. I'm like, hey, I like this guy. Like, so his name is Muhammad. So it doesn't matter what his like origin is, more about like, if I like this person, yes or no. And I think that is the best way to create dialogue and creating connections, because I truly believe that real change starts from the bottom up, from society to government, and not from government to society.
Have you ever experienced, like on the street, being called a derogatory name or anything like that?
I think like one time on the bus, someone said something, and he won't say it again. That's what I can do.
It's scary.
I could be very scary when I want to. Imagine that.
And would you say that Ethiopians have had equal opportunities within Israeli society, in jobs, in university, in the army?
I think it's a very complicated question, because every Ethiopian Israeli have a different experience. I would say that in Israel and in a lot of societies, it's you have a sentiment of ownership and a sentiment of like seniority, meaning people who came here first, and what have they done, and what is their land, and and there's like every generation will look down at the generation after him. Like Ashkenazi will look down at Mizrahi will look down at Yemen will look down on Ethiopian, who are the last to come here. So unfortunately, we are the last to come here, and we are the people who still experience the discrimination or the inequality in a lot of resources in our life. And I think first generation, especially my parents, didn't have any actual opportunities to integrate actually to like major position in the Israeli government. Even for me as a young adult, I still encounter a lot of like blocks that could be happening from my urgent. But I work very hard in order to ensure that my children wouldn't have that. That is something that was stuck in our generation, and every generation have a better experience.
Thank God. Thank God. Has anybody else got any more questions for Ashager? Okay, so would you like to all unmute yourself, and let's all give Ashager a nice round of applause for an amazing talk. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ashager. I could talk to you all night. I've got so many questions. I'm going to have to come to Israel to carry this on. Oh, somebody's just asked, Ashager, do you cook Ethiopian food? There is a wonderful restaurant on Milan Street. Yeah, you know it? We can't hear you, Ashager.
You're muted, Ashager.
Ashager, you're muted.
Hey. Wonderful restaurant indeed. It's my family restaurant. So I do Ethiopian food.
Okay. Yes. Okay.
If you come to Israel, you have to come to visit us at the center or at the restaurant. Of course, we will host you well, and you enjoy your.
She's gone again. That's what I get.
Okay, thank you very much, you guys.
Thank you very much for speaking to us, and thank you, Nicole, for the introduction. What a great speaker. Hatzlacha with everything you're doing at the Bate, and
Thank you.
I can't wait to visit.
Chazak, chazak, mamash chazak, chazak.
Thank
Thank
you,
you,
everybody,
thank
for
you.
joining us from Muswell Hill tonight. I hope you enjoyed.
Thank you, Beth. Great speakers. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye, everyone. Bye,
Thank
Ashager.
you
Laila
very much.
tov.
Laila tov.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Bye, everyone.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye, John Michael. Bye, the Leapmans. Good to see you. Bye, Mum and Dad.
So do you speak Ashager like this all the time, like to different groups besides the your center?
Right now more because of COVID, we're not able to do like actual presentations. So we do more of that in order to keep the audience and the people around us. And I just want to say thank you very much for the opportunity. I hope it was good and you enjoy it.
Oh, it was fascinating.
It wasn't recorded because I missed the beginning. I had to come in late.
Yes, it was, Jackie. It'll go on in the next few days onto the YouTube channel, as long as it's okay with you, Ashager.
Yeah,
Okay.
of course, no problem.
Fantastic. Well, I hope people get to hear you more because, you know, your story is amazing. I love how you said about your dad. He was like, oh no, it's no big deal.
It's all about attitude.
Unbelievable, you know, to give birth, like walking, like.
Music is
Imagine that, like imagine like
amazing
living that.
too. The music, what's her name? The one who was supposed to do Eurovision this year,
Eden Alena, very talented artist.
She is so talented. She's incredible. And I have a friend who has an Ethiopian dance group in Tel Aviv as well. The dancers, teenagers.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, Nicole wants to know what was the effect on COVID being in the center. So it's not been good, has it?
No, it wasn't. But we're working very hard on it to make it. Our purpose is just stay alive until the end of this thing.
Exactly.
This is. It was a pleasure to meet you. Thank you very much again. Hope you have a great evening. I'm going to sleep.
Laila tov.
Laila tov. Bye.
Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye.